on Nutrition with Jessica Setnick, eating disorder specialist and registered dietitian, talking about eating disorders. So what can a parent do?
Well, I can tell you that there's no guarantee that 100% of the time an eating disorder can be prevented. There's so many genetic factors and there's so many societal factors that I would never want a parent to feel responsible for their child's eating disorder and thinking, you know, I could have done something differently, because I think of it kind of like that, you know, the child that goes on a ski trip with school and breaks a leg. You know, it's so tempting for the parent to say, if I was only there, I could have done something. But really what you need to do is kind of take it from that point forward and figure out how to help your child heal. And if you're experiencing guilt over that, it's important to talk with a counselor. But I do think that in some cases, eating disorders are just so genetically loaded that they're not going to be able to be prevented in all cases. However, I think there are things we could be doing a little bit differently. One example is when a child comes to a parent and complains of being bullied or teased or feeling different. It's really important that the parent listen, because as parents, we always want to fix things for our kids, and we want to somehow intervene and make it better. And really, a lot of times a child needs to be listened to and heard, and there may be something the parent can do to intervene, but a lot of healing takes place when the child gets to kind of speak his or her mind and feel sort of accepted, even though they may have felt unaccepted at one point. If they can feel accepted by their parent, that can do a lot of healing. For another example would be if a child says, you know, they're the biggest person in their class. You know, someone has to be the biggest kid in 5th grade. And if that's your kid, then it's important to help your kid feel good about who he or she is, rather than saying we can solve that with a diet or that kind of thing. It's just normal. Someone has to be the biggest, the smallest, the heaviest, the skinniest. And unfortunately, there can be teasing about that. I'm happy that the schools seem to be doing a lot with bullying and teasing, or anti-bullying and anti-teasing. But I feel like parents can support that there's nothing wrong with you as a person. The problem is with the people who are judging you, and help give kids maybe some assertiveness skills, and maybe intervene with the school, but not necessarily indicate that is a problem with the child. And if only you ate more, then kids wouldn't call you beanpole or that kind of thing. I also think that with parents, parents don't realize how much influence they have on their kids, and how kids are really mirroring a lot of parent behavior. And so if parents can teach a child or role model with a child that home is a safe place where we can all feel good about ourselves, and if we're sad, we're allowed to have our feelings, I feel like that's so important. And I know as a stepmom, I have had situations where my stepdaughter would be crying, and I'd be thinking, oh, I hate that she's crying. I want to fix it for her. And then my second thought, which I think is the more healthy one, is, you know what? I'm glad our home is a safe place for her to cry and have those feelings. Because if she's not crying at home, then she's crying at school. And that's, I think, going to lead to bigger problems. So when a child says something about feeling different or wanting to change their eating, I feel like it's something we need to listen more and try to investigate. Because I think there's a lot of situations where kids will say something like, I really want to eat a healthier lunch. And they could just want to eat a healthier lunch, but they could have also had something else going on. And it's really important for the parent to ask, okay, tell me more about that, so that they can find out, is there something else going on? You know, is this about, well, I want to eat a healthier lunch because we had some information on nutrition at school, or I want to eat a healthier lunch because we had some kind of intervention at school because someone was sick and died and I don't want to die. I mean, there's so many different things that kids pick up, and then it's so tempting to say, well, my kid wants to be a healthier eater and not eat snacks and not eat candy, and so I'm really proud of her or him. But really, a lot of times those small changes can be the very beginning of someone trying to manage their emotions using food. And so we can really maybe preempt some things and really prevent the further course of an eating disorder if we can catch it when it's still in the very basic, I'm going to use food to manage my emotions stage.
Right. So identifying those triggers, those things that might happen.
Or the meaning. I think the meaning behind eating changes. And I remember, for example, after 9/11, they would put on TV, like, watch for these behaviors in your kids. Watch for changes in sleeping patterns. Watch for kids who don't want to go to school. Watch for kids with separation anxiety. They never put on there, watch for kids who change their eating patterns.
Right. And that's, that would be an excellent example of how somebody can identify perhaps.
Right.
Yeah.
You can identify an emotional or stress-related issue through the changes in the eating behaviors. And I think that we're so averse to emotional issues in our society. We have them. We don't like to talk about them. That I think that it's almost easier or more desirable to say, well, my child has a weight problem, so therefore I will help them lose weight, instead of my child has XYZ emotional stress, and I don't know how to help them with that. And so it's sort of desirable to channel it into a food or a weight issue. And I think our kids do that even on their own without even our encouragement. We have to be the ones that then go backtrack and say, I know you said you want to cut out eating sugar or sodas, but can you tell me more about what brought that on and what you're hoping to accomplish by doing that, instead of just automatically saying, that's great.
Right. Is there anything else, Jessica?
One thing I would add is that it seems to be that the number one risk factor or trigger for an eating disorder in a young male is a health problem or a death from a health-related problem of an adult male role model. And so that's where a lot of times you get that connection where someone, let's say a grandpa dies of a heart attack, and a young man decides he's going to change his eating because he doesn't want that to happen. And really what you're dealing with is a grief and loss issue, and dealing with that through eating is not going to resolve the grief and loss issue. The child may not need to change their eating at all, but may instead really need some counseling. And so I think if there's any kind of family trauma that happens surrounding sort of that adult male role model, that would be an important thing for parents to keep in mind.
Right. Great. Excellent. Thanks, Jessica.
My
Jessica
pleasure.
Setnick, eating disorder specialist. And we're going to talk in the next video about your child has an eating disorder. Now what? Okay? Thanks for watching Neely on Nutrition, and we'll see you in the next video.